And they say the failure or success of a nation rises and falls on leadership. And they need to expand the horizon to make sure that leadership is all about, bringing respite to the people, finding a way to implement policies that will be seen as popular and terminating any obnoxious policies that could be seen as harsh on the people becomes the brass task for this discussion as we look at strengthening institutions over personalities. We've seen this been done in the United States. Some would say that's too far from us. Let's look at South Africa. Let's look at Botswana. Let's look at other places, even South Korea and other places. Well, joining me to discuss this vital topic from my immediate left, I have a barrister and one who is the senior pastor of Faith Pillars Gospel Center, and he is Dr. Patrick Awo Osage Esquire. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me, Philip, and good morning, viewers.
And next to Dr. Patrick is another seasoned public affairs analyst, Honorable Ewingage Osabohien Kindness. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Philip. Viewers, good morning. Nice to be here.
All right, so while we have that, we will also be joined by an economist from Ekuma Vazum, Dr. Jude Obasomi. Good morning, Jude. Jude, please, can you unmute your mic? Good morning. Okay. As soon as we get signals from Dr. Jude, we bring him on board to have a bite on what we have. Let's quickly start with you, Dr. Patrick. We've seen challenges, facing leadership, starting from what we've had as a self-rule from 1960 to date. And we've seen this basic challenge where personalities go above board, over institutions. Other countries from other climes, have been able to surmount that. But what do you see as the challenges that is facing Nigeria, basically, and how can it, mitigate the gap and, of course, attend to the societal needs that are immediate as we speak, and also embark on long-term, goal of raising institutional reforms in order to strengthen, institutions over personalities?
Thank you very much. To commence with, we must understand one vital position about strengthening institutions, as it were. You must, first of all, as a leader, like they've often said, that everything rise and fall on the leader. Whoever finds himself at the saddle should be able to bear the brunt. And you don't care whose horse is gog. At the same time, you should do what is expected of you, not abusing your office back and forth, as is evident around Africa and other, climes. But again, if you look at it, a leader must be ready to navigate that muddy water to ensuring that all there is to be done to strengthening institution is done. You yourself don't run foul of the said institution. You cannot be, can't eat your cake and have it. And I think it boils down to patriotism. Patriotism is the hallmark of it all, because if you are patriotic about your country, you are patriotic about so many things, around the nation, then you would have to do the needful. Like you cited South Africa, we know they have their own back and forth, but we saw a president being prosecuted. And we saw in the United States, the president being prosecuted, or one-time president being prosecuted. But in Nigeria, I think we've read on papers that XYZ person cannot be prosecuted for obvious reasons, that he was one-time head of state. I don't know how that finds its bearing in our laws and the Constitution. So I think these have been the issue. There are people that have seen themselves as too strong, stronger than the institutions themselves. I know somebody once said, a serving minister at a time, and said, when they said the presidency, this one, he said, who is the presidency? That was the word, and that's very offensive. And it sends so much message to the ordinary man to say, well, there's no. That's why people keep saying, well, they have power, they have everything. Because when the laws are working, which the laws are there, we keep talking about, let's review the law. You don't have that. We have enough laws to attend to every of our problem or needs in the country. We have it there. But whether those who are saddled with responsibility would allow it to sail on freely. I think that's basically been the challenge over time.
Okay.
And that's been it.
Okay, let's look at the attributing factors, really responsible for this challenge, where we have personalities going above institutions in Nigeria. What's your bite? How do you see that, and what do you think can be done in order to correct this abnormal practice?
Okay, first of all, we must acknowledge the fact that, as it has been established, that success or failure of any government depends on those who are saddled with the responsibility of driving the institutions. We must also not forget that institutions are creations of leadership. It's an idea. So to tend to emphasize the workability of institution over and above leadership that created it ab initio, we tantamount to putting the cart before the horse, But that being said, institutions must be strengthened because they are governed by laws. Laws is what guides and polish the activities of institutions, and those laws are made by men. So therefore, we must understand that while we ensure the institutions are working, are functional, the legal framework for which the functions be put in place, but we must understand too that those who are saddled with the responsibility of working out these institutions, we are carefully selecting them. For me, it's about leadership. When leadership is faulty, institutions become faulty. So we must understand the correlation between having a functional institution and bringing on board leadership that will drive these institutions.
So by what you're saying, you mean the selection process is key in order to get the right leadership?
Selection process is key.
But it starts with the political parties.
Of course. We had one time when somebody said that when you belong to a political party, you become immune to trial. That is a definition of failure of institution. Where institutions are working, you no longer look at faces, nor the political party you belong to. It becomes a function of what is obtainable by law, driven by the institutions. So it is not just to say that we need a functional institution. We must look at the processes that bring on board leadership that drives these institutions. I think that is where we are having issues, and particularly as a nation. We have not been able to get our selection or elective processes right. For example, democracy is an idea. Election is an integral part of democracy. And for us to have an effective democracy, we must have a functional elective process. So it is about processes, it's about leadership. For us to have a functional institution, we must have a process that brings about the leadership that drives the institution correctly.
Thank you. Well, let's get to Dr. Jude Obasomi. You heard what the guest said in the studio. Now, what do you see as a middle ground? Because practically we look at the administration as we have it just now under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What do you see as a middle ground that can be used to implement policies that will bring about institutional reforms that will make this to work out, where we have institutions going stronger over personalities? Jude.
Okay, thank you very much, and sincere apologies when I could not effectively connect. But before I go ahead to answer that question, it will be very fundamental for us to have a deeper understanding of what actually are these institutions, right? Talking about institutions, don't leave the one thing. I don't talk about institutions, I'm talking about politicians or whatever. I think basically these institutions are referring to all the various agencies of government that will be sat with one or two responsibilities, either for governance, either for security, or to ensure that there's quality education, or to ensure that the judiciary, the laws of the land are functioning, or to ensure that corruption is kept to the minimum level. These are basically some of the decisions we are talking about. And recall before now, there has been this argument that we have strong institutions in Nigeria. There are strong institutions but it's as if the people are even stronger than the institutions themselves. But I want to, state that what we have in Nigeria are more or less institutions that might seem to be very, very strong, but they are weak in this sense. What do I mean by being weak? They are weak in the sense that the laws or the positions or the views expressed in those institutions or their mandates have been captured in such a way that the individual that they expected to man that position is able to manipulate and pontificate that, yes, this is how we should go ahead to rule, or this is how we are going to go ahead to govern the people, or this is how we are going to run our ministry, so that the institution itself cannot in any way checkmate the holders of such positions. That is why, for example, now you hear of a time that NAFTA was very good, they were working well, and when the head left and that person came on board, they were struggling. You hear of the security, that when Soso person was involved, the security agents were working, policemen, and all of them were working perfectly well. We also hear of other institutions like that. So you can see that there's a major difference between this institution and the holders of such institution, because the law setting up the institution has given it enough room for people to manipulate. That is why today you can hear of a particular judgment in Benin, and you take that same issue to River State or to Abuja, and you get a different judgment, because the way the laws are crafted has given room for people to manipulate it, has given room for people to give it their own personal understanding, which is not fair at all. So moving forward is for us to look at those institutions. What are those things that are given these people, the holders of such positions, unnecessary power, unnecessary influence for them to do whatever they have to do? I think we have to begin from there, because one, if those institutions are crafted, policies are crafted in such a way that people can manipulate it, there's no way we can achieve success. For example, now you have an institution in Nigeria might be talking about fighting of corruption. A government will say that we need to fight corruption, but day in, day out, you see government officers, you see those institutions that expect to fight corruption, conniving, partnering with holders of such positions that to jettison what they are expected to do. How do you not expect the people to work? Then on that component, we need to look at under this institution has to do with governance effectiveness. For example, in Edo State, let me come down to the question before I come to your main question now. In Edo State, we have, for example, the e-governance platform that was quite helpful and supportive. So if it is good, and now most people know that that e-governance is good, so that they reduce the rate through the newspaper in our communication ministry. A government cannot just come tomorrow to say, so that policy, because I'm from another party, I will just see it. It does not work like that. But here now, we have things that a regime, we have to craft its own definition of how institutions to run. Anybody that comes on board will think of how best to operate based on their own understanding. In terms of aligning, you see, we must understand where we are coming from and also understand where we are going to. We cannot align, whereas those that are expected to effectively run the country or run our agencies are not doing the right thing. We are talking about a lot of pain in the land. People are unable to feed. According to the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, that about 20.8% Nigerians now go for begging, what's called executive begging or executive ragging. Whereas somebody put on a fine tie, I will just greet you, good morning, sir. Please, you'll be expected to say something good, but what he will tell you that, please, can you help me 1,000 naira for transportation? So people are suffering, but you have a government that is interested in going ahead to impoverish the people, to make them to feel that they don't belong to the country. How do you expect the people to now feel? So I strongly believe that government must show some level of sincerity in their policy, in their action. That is the only way. Look at what is happening now in all the institutions now. Judiciary is faulty. Look at the executive now. They decided to impose themselves on other arms of government. Look at the legislation. That one is even worse off. So that any bill that comes to the House, nobody goes ahead to scrutinize. Before they talk about opposition, but now they only have opposition based on their party nomenclature. But in terms of all these policies, they don't actually take out their time to criticize or to make proper scrutiny of such policy. It's very sad and shameful. So I believe that going forward, we must understand what we want to do. And the government must try as much as possible to be sincere and learn to do the right thing. In the case of Nigeria, we have been, in a paper I wrote that talked about international framework and international trade, I said Nigeria is currently practicing the elitist capture theory. Elitist capture theory. What that theory says that you have a few individuals who have been able to occupy political positions, and they continue to put in place policies ideas that will drive the working of those institutions so that their own selfish agenda will continue to remain. And how do they sustain it? They put in their friends, their children, their wives or husbands to remain in offices so that that capture will continue to remain. Not until we are able to defeat the airlines in our community, in our country, there's no way we can survive. We continue to be set up agencies, parastatals, and what have you now, but they will not work. I told somebody one time that if a Bushman should become the American president, the institution will regulate him. But in Nigeria, it does not work like that. Even if you are good, you are wonderful, the private sector, you come to government agencies, the institution of government will frustrate you so that at the end of the day, you end up joining them. That is
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jude. You touched virtually most areas that we'll be having this conversation. But before we continue on that, we take a short break to stay.
TMI, every opinion counts.
It's a TMI. Big thanks for joining us again. Well, let's get the views that Dr. Jude shared. And of course, we can't also forget what Honorable Kindness also shared, Usaboye, in this regard, when he spoke about the selection process.
All right.
And my challenge here is we have an administration where it's expected that there should be a political will to tackle issues that will want to rise against the goal of such an administration. Basically looking at the challenge of having cabals, that want to derail the process, or, having the doctrine of godfatherism abused that will want to monopolize the process. He also spoke about the Edo State, for instance, they need to continue reforms that are geared towards having these institutions, rising above personalities. What's your take in all of this?
Well, it's to be in leadership, to be a leader and being in leadership, there are wonderful things like he had lightly outlined. But again, we must also understand that there is no mechanism to know what's on the mind of a person. You cannot interpret it. I know he talked about the ethnic, the bourgeois, if you permit me, those that perpetuate themselves, that are the elites in society. Now, before you see the American system, they have this electoral college that also check through and see. It's not about getting people, every Tom, Dick, and Harry to vote. Somebody who doesn't understand. I know that's one of the demerits of democratic system. Both those that know what to do and those that don't know, they are entitled to vote. That's the point. So the idea of somebody who doesn't even know what's going on, it's because you could go around the number and then you become the person elected. So the process in that sense will be faulted because you should understand the people are not well orientated. They see the one who is in leadership as, it's above board and there's nothing, whoever gets, that's why they struggle so hard. Unknown to them that if the system fails, it's going to affect everybody, whether he's there or not. So basically, my take is always, if you want to have it or get it right, you should orientate the people. And, this weaponizing of poverty that is everywhere is a strategy also. When people can no longer do business well, they have to find trying to make both ends meet. It becomes a major strategy to pull them into the union of defeated folks that would not be at the back wagon of those that are saying we are the winners or we are champions of democratic system. I think that's basically it. In a system that whereby is more or less like the only business they have is their election, and whoever is in power is their, is the king and whoever. So I think it doesn't work that way. We must have those that even don't want to be partisan. Because you are in a system that if you don't know one person or you are not one lawyer somewhere that they know they cannot oppress, you may not be able to get by. So if you just want to lead your quiet life, it becomes, so people want to run activities in that regard, but we don't have room for that in our system. It's either you are here or there. I can see now in the system we have now, those that win election, they are the ones that are celebrating. The losers, they're standing small, they have nothing to say, and they are being seen as enemies. It shouldn't be so.
Okay.
That's basically how I see it. When you're looking at it from that standpoint, bringing everybody together, a leader should be able to bring everyone together and ensuring that what is good for the people, it's what it should be meted out on them, and not the way we have seen it in recent past. And, you know, I think that's basically what...
Okay, let me ask you a vital question, and I will need your response in 2 minutes, quickly, before I pass it to, you know, Honorable Kindness Osaboye. Do you see the present leadership under Bola Ahmed Tinubu as having eyes on the ball in raising reforms, policy reforms, in order to institutionalize the country above personalities?
Now, it's a hard nut to crack, the way you put it out there, because obviously on paper we could see that, and from body language you could see that, but in practice you see something else, because Nigeria is a very complex country. You must appreciate that fact. It's not just for the governor or president to say this is what I intend to do, you know, or this how we go about it. The character of those that are championing the cause is what I'm talking about. Like I earlier said, you don't have a gadget to decode what's on the mind, you know, of the man who you have given responsibility. So the president may have his good will, good intention, have his men that have said, yes, this is exactly what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, you see them going the other way. Okay. And that's basically why, and you remember when Obasanjo was president, he came up with the EFCC. EFCC worked very well at the time. So when they say institutions can't work, I don't agree. EFCC worked, when you, the name alone, EFCC, it gets a lot of governors scared. And they work so well. So if it could work, go on had the NYSC and all those great laudable stuff they brought in their time. And it can be strengthened. Is that some of these guys, like you claim the cabals and all those people, the cabals, they are just a creation of thoughts, because they are the same people. Who is a cabal? Cabal is not, is faceless. You say this man is a cabal. You just call names some names you know before. It's not true. Some of those guys don't even know. I've dealt with a good number of them. And at the time okay, just like this, my brother now, he's my friend. And then he's heading one parastatal. And they know he's my friend. I will just use his office. I say, honorable, you know. And they say, well, because they know me and him. And when I come to you, I say, yes, honorable instructs that you do this. And you can't get to him, because getting to him is difficult. You get it? So they not say the cabal. So those guys, these are the things we should check. Okay. The free flow of information, and how to check whatever has been said. I think that is just basically what it is. Most of the documents and even letters that emanate from high-profile offices are fabricated, forged. Okay. And then it's said true, because there's no way to verify that. You not blame on the honorable because you couldn't reach him. I think that's basically things we should also look out. Okay. And I think that's
you raised a very vital issue as regards this election process, and I will want you as an originator of that on this conversation to kickstart a vital part in that direction. Now, there's this cabal that has been so, huge upon the political landscape in Nigeria. And again, we had the challenge, in the previous administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Could we say we also had the challenge way back, even in that of Jonathan Musa Yar'Adua, former President Olusegun Obasanjo? There's been a backlash even between the former President Olusegun Obasanjo and the present administration, over that. And now, do you see the political will in the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to tackle the issue of the cabal? Because the cabal, again, also, infiltrates into the political parties and also decide how the electoral laws will be churned out using people within the National Assembly. So how do you tackle that? Do you see political will on the side of the president to tackle this?
First of all, we must establish the fact that the issue of cabal, for me, tend to be more of a mirage than realistic issue. First of all, the word presidency is not Ahmed Tinubu. It is the institution of the president.
That's correct.
Edo State government. It is not Monday Okpebholo. It is the institution of Edo State government. So when you say cabal, in the context, cabal is everywhere. It's in your family. It's in your church.
That's correct.
It's in every area of leadership. The issue for me is, what do you do with cabal? Because in the context, it is the coming together of a selected few to drive a process. Then the question is, this process that is being driven, to whose advantage? Is it to the collective well-being of everybody or for the selected few? That is the issue. For me, Kaba is not the issue. Whether Tinubu is trying to deal with the issue of Kaba or not. My concern is what is being done with this Kaba.
Exactly the issue.
What is being done? What is being done?
Because you raised about this election process, and that also affects it.
Philip, in every government, you have what they call kitchen cabinet. Those are what we refer to as Kaba, because these are the ones who are closer to the seat of power, or the man in power, for example, the president, the state governor. There are people who are close to him, who take informations from him and dish it out. We have had a situation in this country, sir, when a president was asked that ASU is on strike. He said he was not aware. We have had a situation. A president said that he was not aware that an institution as strong and viable as ASU was on strike, and he said he wasn't aware. What that means is that even the man who is saddled with the responsibility of leading a country may have not been aware of some decisions that have been taken by those around him.
Correct.
So those are the issues. So talking about President Tinubu taking decisions to deal with it, I think what we should be looking at is the framework, institutional framework put in place by the government to ensure that whatever decisions that are taken are in the best interest.
Have you identified such policies that we see are geared towards having these long-term, institutions rising above personalities under the present leadership?
First of all, I have said it here and every other place, that one of the issues that this president has dealt with is the issue of subsidy. The people we refer to as Kaba were those that were feeling fat from this issue of subsidy. And the president came and took a very tough decision that is biting on all of us, irrespective of which political party you belong to. The issue of subsidy is hitting deep. But again, we must understand that it was a decision that was necessary at that time for the overall well-being of Nigerians, but not in the immediate, but of course, in a long-term,
okay.
It has a long-term benefit. So the president, for me, irrespective of what we are currently dealing with, we must continue to give him benefit of doubt. Because the reality is that there's nothing you will say, no amount of grammar you speak, or actions you say you are taking. Like my brother said earlier, we have no way to tell the content of a man's heart. Your intentions may be good, your ideas may be fantastic, but until it erupts off on the people positively, we cannot tell that it's a good idea.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Thank you. Well, let's get back to you, Dr. Jude. In as much as we know that you are an economist, you also, tackle issues as regards, politics and the policies of the government. Now, let's have our mind on the election process or selection process, like what Kindness brought in that we also have to bite on. Do you see, the political will in the present leadership in order to correct the ills of the electoral process just now? Because we have whereby 4 years in, 4 years out, where we have the election, there seems not to be a feel by the electorate on having the reflection of results, showing the wishes of the people. And then a situation where you see, the judiciary, overturning or deciding, the fate of the people's result, or of the fate of the people's choice in election. How do you say this, and how can we correct this anomaly, most especially as regards raising institutions that will correct this abnormal practice?
Okay, thank you very much. I would say that I've not seen any sincerity on the part of this current government led by President Tinubu to make some strategic changes in the country. I've not seen it at all. The indicators, are showing that it's not on the right path. So, for example, now, like my brother there mentioned that issue again for Nigeria, particularly in the area of removal of oil subsidy. That is the greatest scam, and I keep saying it. It is the greatest scam of the century. For us, we still believe that those guys who are eating fat are now eating fatter because of this removal of subsidy in the morning. Tomorrow it has not been removed. Next tomorrow it has partial removal. It's on record that Nigeria claimed to must have gained about $20 billion with removal of fuel subsidy. The question is, where are such funds gone into? Yet, the country is still borrowing about 1.9 trillion to cushion the deficit in our budget. So Nigerians are watching. Nigerians are looking the outcome of the period elections that are taking place in the country. And one was even consoled recently to say that after all, if the governors can have local government elections and they have 24 over 24, 35 over 35. So if the president decides to have 35 over 35 plus, plus Abuja, what have you, and then nobody should go ahead to complain. So these are already in the minds of persons. And with the pulse of government now at the moment, it does not show that. Recall, as at 2015, Nigeria celebrated the former INEC chairman, Jega, also Professor Jega, that yes, we were getting it right. And that was why after his election, after President Jonathan election in 2015, he called, what was it called now? Then President Buhari to congratulate him. And most of us were expecting that, yes, gradually we are getting it. But in 2019, the narrative changed. In 2023, it became worse. So what can we begin to say about 2027? For us, it's a major challenge for us as a people that this current regime has not shown a level of sincerity. And if we decide to work on the World Bank governance indicators, or normally for the World Bank, they have certain parameters, indicators to rate institutions whether they are working. Let's bring up the case of President Ahmed Tinubu. In terms of rule of law, has it worked? It has not worked. Every day conflicting judgments. People have even lost trust in the judiciary. People will now say that, fine, if you have any case, if you have any quarrel, go to court. That is the slogan, we meet in court. But that's how it should be. Look at the area of regulatory quality of governance. That is government ability to provide strong policies and regulations. It's on record that early this year, the federal government, when Nigerians were suffering, unable to buy rice, unable to buy bread, said, look, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, fine. Early this year, the federal government came to the position that they're going to open the border for food to come into the country. That for 6 months, they will open the borders, food can come into the country. The question is, that policy is good and fine, good food to come to the country. But was there an arrangement to make sure that at the end of the 6 months, our farmers will be able to go to their farms, our producers will be able to produce, there will be light, there will be energy. No provision like that. We don't want to make that position. Then look at another indicator from the World Bank. So what I'm saying is now is that I'm using the indicators as defined by the World Bank in terms of monitoring government institutions. If you try to look at control of corruption, it's on record. You only hear that people are arrested. You only hear that they come to the house of somebody to arrest. The next day, the person will now go to the office in Abuja and go and report. Has there been any high-profile case that started and got to a conclusive end of recent? Not at all. It's only that poor man that decided to go and steal 5 tubers of yam that the Nigerian police will run after and say, we are going to prosecute you, we are going to deal with you. But those guys that steal huge sums of money and even steal our own, not my own children, shall steal people's future. Those guys are celebrated every day. In terms of transparency, has this government proven to be transparent in what they do? Not at all. Not at all. The purchase of the aircraft for presidential jet for the president, was it captured in the budget? Not at all. Nigerians complain. The next thing, they now went ahead to buy it. Who gives a damn to the people? And that is why I keep to maintain that what is happening in Nigeria is the elitist capture. People are being captured and we are struggling for liberation. If they like, let them get the best person to come and be in EFCC. The way it is constituted now, they may not be able to work. Because Nigerians are very clever and we are very creative. They know how best, if you make things difficult for them, they will create a way to break it. So I don't believe that this government, based on my knowledge, and start to be put to be corrected, that they have not shown a level of sincerity. Is there any sector of the country that is working?
Thank you,
apart from the
Thank you,
sector. I'm coming. Apart from that sector, it don't work. So it's an appeal that they should do more. We can do more. Nigeria has all the human resources to do well, to govern our country. That's why we travel abroad. You see Nigeria excel. The question is, are these institutions not there? Well, they perform very well, but here in Nigeria, it cannot work. If you don't know somebody, you can never get a good job.
Thank you, Dr. Jude. Well, in order to get it right, we don't know if it's a rocket science, because we've not just seen United States of America, rising above board, strengthening institutions over, personalities. We've seen South Africa. This is Africa. South Africa, Rwanda, Botswana. So what is the hard nut to crack? Majorly, as he also spoke about, the need, if we want to look at the subnational government, for instance, we have Senator Monday Okpebholo as the new governor of Edo State. Now, there is also need to look at the policies that should be continued from the previous. So, can you knit all of this together in order to find a middle ground where we can have institutions working over personalities?
Thank you very much. Well, you see, he actually said, Dr. Obasomi, right? Obasomi. He clearly stated that, in his conclusion, he talked about the complexity. Nigerians are very smart. You could want to do something that will go the other way. If you've been the best person to be EFCC boss, they will find a way to navigate through. What makes you think that's not what's going on? That's not what's happening to the president as it stands.
Exactly.
Are you getting it? Because at the end of time, you are saying Nigerians are very smart, they are very, very strategic. You could get the best hand to go there. Like I said before, you cannot decode what's on the mind.
Okay, but as the leader, you should have a grip.
Yes, when you say you don't have a grip, must you take a gun or a knife to dagger them before you know you have a grip? There are ways to get them out of office. If you cannot, until you prove beyond reasonable doubt. I'm a lawyer, so when you said somebody have committed an offense, he can come up now and say, I've done something wrong. Even if you saw me with a knife or a gun. That's not enough for you to claim that I'm a criminal. You have to go to court. And he said they keep saying go to court. I also disagree with him when he mentioned before, because that's casting aspersion at the judges in some way. I must also rise to that to say this. If you must understand how the court works. The court is not your village square gathering. The court is a court of record and law. And now when you come to court, you must come with proper application. I remember a man was removed as already the local government chairman. I don't want to mention names now. And then he ran to court that they should stop the governor from removing him. That was his application before the court. And the court could not do anything because at that time, he was already removed. He would have been asking for a reinstatement. So they are different things altogether. So when you leave a particular court, like in Benin City, High Court, for instance, and you go to Abuja, and then you now file another application before court, and what you are filing to court, you don't bring in some gray areas that will impede on what the previous court had seen. You remove that part and present something new to the new judge. The new judge is going to litigate, is going to adjudicate on what is before him. And that's what you see. Okay, so when you say, when you see this conflicting judgment back and forth, when you say, well, I got the judge in Benin gave a conflicting judgment as against the one in Abuja, did you study through the application before? Okay,
but can you roll out undue influence of the executive on the judiciary? Because that's exactly what Jude is also trying to bring to view. But we're going to be taking a short break, after which you extend the conversation in that regard. Do stay.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Thank you. Let's stay TMI, and we're looking at leadership and economic development in order to make institutions stronger over personalities. I still have my guest with me, Dr. Jude Obasomi Vazum, and of course, Osaboye, Kindness, Emigari, still with me, and of course, I still have the legal practitioner, Patrick Awo-Segwe. You had it, so yes. Pick up from where you left off. Most especially as we're going to be dwelling on this part as we close on Edo State. Now, there is a vista for progress in Edo State, having the senator as the governor, Monday Okpebholo.
Yes.
You know, what do you see? While you finish from where you left off, you also look at the need to see reforms that will bring about institutions, strong institutions in Edo State, looking at the administration of Senator Mondo Kwewalo?
Thank you very much. Like I was trying to bring the issues of court having conflicting judgments.
Yeah.
I cannot adjudicate on what is not before me. The judges, most of them don't even read what you call newspaper. They don't have that time. And they have to concentrate on what is before them. And lawyers like us are very smart. When they are coming, they distort certain information and they push it to the court. And when that happens, and the judge will give judgment based on what is before the judge. So you now say, look at conflict, that's by the way. Now coming back home, talking of reforms that had the sustaining the previous administration's legacy of sorts. I know that's what many persons have been saying. Now these issues, there are areas, I loved what the governor said. He said prior to the time of the e-gov and all whatnot, they were moving of files. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything, everything cannot work, maybe technology as it were, we must just run on with the way it had always been. You don't say he's a governor, he has a mind of his own.
So he can bring his own self-styled administration?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when you are talking about, oh, he just carry on. Continuity in governance is not carrying on with all policies that may not benefit.
No, we're looking at the positives.
When you say the positive, what you call positive may not be, he's the governor. He decides what is positive. That's why he's elected. Now, when he said this one, like he just came from his oath of office, he started going around and look at the congestion nature of, you know, when you are going to Mobile, you know what it is. I don't go that route because it's caring, because of the way it is. And he said, this is not good. I'm going to construct this, construct that. That's a good way, and that's how he should lead. And again, if you talk about maybe this patterning after the Western world, which is so good, we have everything computerized. We may not have much of that, and we may not get into all of that. I have often said I'm not a fan of things like that in all essence. Now, I'm not saying I don't accept it. I don't, as you know, to a great extent. You look at the benefits. Okay. Look at how well has it really impacted the people? The people that you want to run with such agendas. Yeah. How well have you trained them? I know there have been free Wi-Fi. It's not too long. I got to know that there's free Wi-Fi at Ring Road, although I don't need that. But for those that need, do they even have phones that enable internet?
Does it work?
Even if it works, I said, do they have the wherewithal to get a phone, an Android phone that will? So to a great extent, we need to carry everybody along. Governance is not hanging somewhere, all right. And it's not like you're creating it for a few. It must be for holistic.
Okay, let's test your viscosity. Wait, before you fire, let's test your viscosity. We're looking at digital governance, for instance, as a way of bringing about institutional reforms, where personalities, we have to go under the institutions to obey what the institutions say. What do you see about the present administration in that regard of continuing on digital governance?
So I don't forget my thoughts. It is easy for citizens to cast aspersions on leadership. You say the president bought private jet, for example. Mm-hmm. We have cast aspersions. We have said that the president has asked us, citizens, to make sacrifices. What sacrifice is he making? Well, valid point. But the question I'm asking is this. Leadership doesn't exist in vacuum. It is human being that makes up leadership. For example, sir, if we say that the president's decision to buy private jet is wrong, have we seen a governor who said, I have just been elected, I will not buy new vehicles, I will use the old ones? Have we seen council chairman who said, I have been elected, I will not buy new vehicles, I will use the old ones? Have we even seen citizens?
Is it wrong to say such?
Excuse me, sir. Is
it wrong to have a different narrative in that regard?
The point I'm making is this. It is not about institutions per se. Yeah. It is about personalities. To have working institutions, we must have strong personalities.
But we don't want those strong personalities to compete with institutions.
It is not competing.
Rather, we want the institutions we want the personalities to follow through the institutions.
When I say strong personalities, I'm looking at it vis-a-vis the quality of character.
Okay.
The quality of character.
In order to improve on these institutions.
Those who will put the institutions over and above personal interest.
Exactly.
That's what we're looking at. And that doesn't stop by the president, nor the governor, nor the council chairman. It also affects the citizens.
Okay, zero down to the states and see how that can also
come. The citizens who will say, I won't take bribe to vote a candidate. The change starts from the very bottom. not just top.
The changes start from the bottom.
The changes start.
Who makes the policies?
No,
Who implements the policies?
It's not about policies.
If you bring about an electoral law, for instance,
yes.
Excuse me, if you bring about an electoral law, for instance, as a leader,
yes,
what can the people do?
Philip, are you aware?
Only follow what you follow.
Are you aware?
If you say it starts from the bottom,
yes,
are you throwing away the leadership?
No, not at all.
Because the leaders are the one leading the people.
We cannot throw away the leadership. But I'm saying that every citizen needs to have what we call social renaissance, moral rearmament, having to recreate your mind, to say that it is the country first, it is the well-being of the generality first, because it is the citizen that make up the leader.
Okay, are you trying to exonerate the leaders? I want to talk about
not at all. We cannot exonerate the leaders, but we are saying that while leadership is wrong and faulted at all levels, citizens must take a definite decision.
Can you give an example?
Very good. Good. For example, are you aware, sir, that in terms of institution building, that vote buying is against the law?
I know you were going there.
But citizens, excuse me, sir, citizens take money to influence their vote.
Going there.
Let's
what has the government done as regards prosecuting those who are guilty of it? Have we seen any prosecution?
Who are those to prosecute?
Is it the people that will do that?
Who are
the government?
Who is the government?
Okay,
who is the government?
I'll come back to you.
Just to zero in on.
In 30 seconds, round off.
Just to zero in on Monday Okpebholo's administration, in terms of building on existing structure, whether you are a member of Party A or Party B, if there are reforms, policies and programs that affect the people positively, that it is not your party who brought about that reform, is not enough reason why you must discard those policies and programs. That's what part of the things that some of us have against the previous government. But again, the governor has the right to take his decision. Absolute right to take it, because the ball stops on his table.
Exactly.
Everything he does that happens in a state today, it is the government that will be held responsible. So if he says that you want to do away with e-governance, that files can move, so long the movement of file moves to the advantage of the common Edo man, we are not problem with it.
Thank you. Jude Obasomi, Dr. Jude, I don't know how you're going to go about it, but round off on all of those points that have been raised in 1 minute. Can you unmute your mic, please?
Sorry, I said that you cannot give me 1 minute because my brothers and master in the studio now, they had enough time to ventilate their position. So you must allow me sincerely to ventilate my concerns and those of a lot of persons. You see, there's no way you can talk about change to start from the bottom. I tell my kids in the school, my children, please don't get yourself involved in electoral malpractice. You will struggle to write your jam. Then a big man, so to say, who goes otherwise, and is given that the child is given admission to the same university based on the fact that he was nominated by the current president. Is that proper? So a change will definitely start from it. So when you see the leadership, people will begin to work towards that. A case in point that of Jesus Christ. Then in terms of all these issues of cheating of blames, in Nigeria, we are good at protecting our own profession.
For that, I think the network are really true of that. Well, let's get your round off in 30 seconds.
Well, it's obvious that from the way it sounds, if you look at it critically, you cannot just really say, well, all sectors should just go on the way it should go. But basically what I'm looking at is that the man that is governor today have a working plan and is not bound by any law to hold on to the apron string of the previous administration.
Okay.
And secondly, whatever he decides to do, so long it trickles down to the average Edo indigene. I think that's basically what it is.
All right, thank you.
I think that's what basically what it is.
Thank you, Erin Larry Osabuye Kindness.
Yes.
Thank you for taking time. But let's get to your ventilation in that, because it's all about having this achievement for the people. And, you know, if we take our minds back to the Thomas Hope's theory of the state, how government started.
Yeah.
He said life is short, nasty, and brutish if there is no government. Now, the institutionalization of the government, actually started with the people. You also brought about the electoral process where you said selection is key. Now, how do we get it right? Where we have administration being, kick-starting policy formulation and implementation. How in the long run, or what do you see in the long run as institutions that should be formed from Monday Okpebholo's administration in Edo State?
Well, just to say that we had a slogan one time when by, I think, Dr. Akunyili,
Yes.
who said changes begins with me.
Yeah.
Every change you want to see must first start with you. So for me, I want to appeal to citizens that we must put the general well-being of the people over and above self.
Yeah.
When we do that, it will reflect in how we behave at home. It will reflect in how we behave when we are elected into offices. It will also reflect in taking decision on who we select or elect to take position of leadership. When that is done, we begin to make the required progress that we expect to make as a people. And as for the president's administration, whatever decision he takes, so long it does not infringe on the rights and privileges of the people, so long it does not infringe on the laws of the land, we must continue to give him support to ensure that everything he does on or behalf of the people. I believe that he has good intentions of the people, he has great experience, and I have said it before, that he must leverage on good policies of the past administration, so long they are good ones, especially the area of revenue drive. Of all the failures of the past administration, you cannot say that it did not improve all our internal revenue. That this government must look into with a view to seeing that it improves more on it. So that Edo people will have money, sufficient funds to drive the change that he wishes to drive.
Among the reforms that the Edo people would also want to see, using this as Edo State as a case study, is also this aspect of the need to make sure that democracy gets to its grassroots. The local government elections, for instance, where states usually turn out the entire local government, being won by the party, 18/18, for instance, in Edo State. How do we see these reforms pull through in the time of Monday Okpebholo, Senator Monday Okpebholo, as the governor of Edo State? We want to see where democracy will thrive, and there will be no interference of the government of the state on the electoral process. Dr. Jude, please, if you got that, can you respond to this? Well, I believe we have. Okay, Dr. Jude, over to you.
Other people should learn to be positive and expect that better things will come up. Then we as citizens, let us try to do our part. Because if there's not an Edo State, so to say, in 4 years' time, nobody will come and aspire to become the governor of the state. But I want to appeal to the governor, please and please and please, Edo people don't want excuses. Do what you can do so that by the time you leave office, all thumbs up will go up for you for what you have done for the state. I wish him well.
Thank you. In case, just for you to know, I asked you a question as regards the institutional reforms you expect in the electoral process, for instance, where in the state you see the entire local governments being won by one party, in the local government elections. Now, what do you see as an agenda for this administration in setting such institutional reforms, intact in its administration?
Yeah, I may not be able to comment very well on that because there's a court ruling that says that the council should not be dissolved, and some persons already started sending their poster they want to contest to become council chairman or councillors. So this is a narrative that I want the governor to look at it critically, get his legal team to advise on the best action to take. But in terms of dissolving the council. That may not be right, but there are better reasons why they might go ahead to the. But however, there's a judgment that says that this council chairman should not be dissolved. But I want to appeal to let's put an enabling playing ground for everybody to participate actively. All of them must not belong to one party to get things done.
Thank you, Dr. Jude, but it appears you didn't get my question properly.
But
I think that's all we can take.
Yeah, just to say that the judgment it talks about,
yes,
he should be able to cite those judgments, who took those decisions and which court took those decisions. Because we see this flying around in social media.
Okay, thank you.
Because there is a, that has to be made clear.
Thank you.